My name is Cody Shamrock. I'm a product specialist with Leonard Bus Sales. So my job is kind of to take in new technology and digest it and bring it down to a different level, get it out to the supervisors and the drivers and help people understand what we're working with. We don't want to put anything out there that leaves you with too many questions and not enough answers. So that's really my job, is to kind of help work through that process. Today we're going to talk about what's called Bendix Wingman Advanced, and that is a collision mitigation technology and electronic stability control system for school buses. So for those that are unfamiliar, Bendix is the manufacturer, and they primarily manufacture brake components and things of that nature. So the yellow parking brake knob on your dash, if you look, says Bendix on it. They are the manufacturer of these collision mitigation systems, so it's a name that we can count on, which is always a good thing. Wingman Advanced is the name of the system. So there's a couple different levels. The standard that most of you will be receiving this year is Wingman Advanced. What I do want to say before I go too far is that technology is a really good thing when it's used correctly, and we know that, we've proven that, but no technology replaces a good driver, right? You have to train your drivers. They have to understand, the rules of the road, how to drive in different weather conditions, how to react to different situations, right? We can give them all the technology in the world, but if they don't know how to drive normally, it's no good to them. And so I don't want to give the impression that this technology is meant to make a bad driver good, because it won't. A good driver has to be a good driver. Some of you have probably heard this before. I know there's a few faces I've seen, so I apologize for the repetitive nature of some of this, but for the new people in the room, maybe you can help them if they have questions. So we're going to go through a few things. The push for new technology from the federal government, the importance of its adoption, in-depth system training. We have the documents I referenced that we'll review, and then a training video from IC Bus. We'll go through our website and show you where you can find some additional information, and then we'll go out to the bus as well, because I think the rain has now stopped already as quick as it started, and we'll give you a quick look around the outside of the bus as well, so you know how to identify the different components. So by the end of this, it's important that you understand the importance of technology in our industry. We've historically been a slow to adopt technology kind of business. There's still a lot of that out there, but it can help us. We just have to understand why it's important and what it can do. I want you to have an understanding of what electronic stability control is and how it affects your day-to-day, or doesn't for that matter. Identifying a bus with a collision mitigation system. You're going to be running buses for the next 10, 12 years that don't have it, right alongside the buses that do. And so it's important that you understand the difference between those two vehicles. I want you to feel like you can communicate with your drivers about it as well. Maybe you're not going to be an expert right away, and that's fine. You don't have to be. But high-level conversation with your drivers is probably something that you should have the ability to do. But also we'll give you materials to help with that, and so we'll go through the Leonard Bus website to find some of that stuff. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to kind of jump into the push for new technology. NHTSA is always pushing for new stuff. We can't escape the fact that new technology is coming down. We can try to avoid it, but ultimately we have to adopt it. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. So in 2017, for example, over 37,000 people died in motor vehicle crashes, and most are tied to human error. Granted, probably almost all of those are passenger cars, people that are not professionally trained drivers, but these things do happen. Human error is something we have to deal with. In 2004, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety found that stability control can reduce fatal crashes by about 56%. That's a pretty dramatic number when you think about it. So in 2016, 40% of cars had collision mitigation. School buses had nothing, okay? As of 2012, vehicles under 10,000 pounds were required to have it. So it's interesting that they would require it on our small passenger cars, but not the larger vehicles on the road. And that's when in 2015, NHTSA said ESC needs to be on some heavy trucks, motor coaches, but not school buses. They're exempt. Why is that? Not entirely sure, but it is interesting that most every vehicle on the road has something, and we haven't up until this point. And the reason that I point this out is, if you think about it, cars have it, trucks have it, we sit in the middle of that, right? So it's likely that we're going to get to a point where it's required for us as well. Canada actually already requires it as of June of 18. They have to have stability control on all of their school buses from that point forward. So they've been now, over a year requiring that. The technology is kind of, I don't want to call it closing in around us, but it's very much present and it's coming. And so we're in a position now where we want to help you understand how to adopt it so that ultimately if it does become required, you feel like an old pro and it's not such a big deal. We don't like fire drills. That's the idea. So I want you to think about the cars you drive, maybe a car you've rented, and think about the technology that is on that car. You've got, in recent years, ABS, of course, electronic stability control, backup cameras now are required, lane departure, lane assist, blind spot detection, cars that can park themselves. I mean, these cars do everything. And it's a little tough at first when you get in that new vehicle to try and adjust to that, but probably most of you at some point have interacted with some form of this technology in your day-to-day lives, maybe not thought anything of it. Think about your school bus. What have we gotten in our school buses? Maybe backup cameras, maybe. Heated power mirrors, maybe. Some people still don't have those. Power doors, we still have some customers that order the old manual door. Pedlock or brake interlock for student stops, maybe. ABS, definitely. That's it. In comparison to the cars, we haven't seen a whole lot of change in the world of school bus. And you're probably wondering why I'm telling you this. The idea is to first help you kind of, because you have to bring this back to your drivers and your staff, I need to kind of bring you up to speed on where we are in comparison to the rest of the world, because you're going to get questions and we want to make sure you have answers. Going forward, you're going to have electronic stability control and collision mitigation on your vehicles. And I will, in detail, go through what those features are and how they work and the things that you need to know. But first, I want to get through some of the kind of background on why we've gotten to this point. So our buses have changed. So I have here a little bit of a comedic break, and I'm going to let her tell the story. But what I like about this video is it kind of highlights some of the new technologies that IC Bus is pushing out. And it does it in a way that's funny, but the point is there's some information in there that's worth pulling. She's going to mention that these buses now have the same technology as her mom's minivan, right? And that's important. There's still people out there that think driving their kids to school is safer than riding the school bus, right? I mean, we face that reality. So I'm going to play this, and again, it's kind of a little bit of a comedic relief, but there's some good points in here.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Schornstein, President Pro Tem of Science Club. This school year promises to be another epic milestone for me. 1, I expect my presidency of Science Club to become permanent. And 2, the new fleet of icy school buses have arrived. Since I spend 23.5% of my educational day in transport, I expect the bus to be up to the task. Oh, and as my mother's precious tulip, safety technology is the most important feature. Right, Mom?
That's right, Lizzie. Now, when you get to school, I want you to send me a text message right away and then go talk to your teacher, and I want you to...
So, I Googled it. All IC bus models come with electronic stability control and collision mitigation systems, standard, just like my mom's minivan. Oh, look at that guy in the vet. Put the phone down and drive, you moron! Speaking of phone, I plug mine into these cool USB ports. And the Wi-Fi is better than at my house.
Field trip, all right? I want you to sit in the front of the bus because that's where you belong because you're the best student in the class.
Oops, drop call. Look, if I hadn't taken the time to educate my parents about IC Bus's safety and technology features, I'd be wearing bubble wrap. So do a favor for the kids in your school district and give their mom and dad one less reason to be helicopter parents. Hit it, driver!
I'll see you after school, ballet practice, then soccer. Don't forget. Okay, I love you. Mwah. Call Grandpa. Send him a text. Send him a pic of you with the gold star. Okay, I love you. Bye.
Couple points in there, like I said, that are interesting. They make a good point in that it's good for parents and people in general to know that this technology is there. When you think school bus, they maybe think back to the bus they rode when they were a kid. And it's a little different now. So there's no harm in them understanding that this technology is out there now. If anything, it can only help us. So I like to show that to kind of give you a break from me, but also because it's entertaining and they, kind of do make some good points there. So electronic stability control is a standard feature on all of your new buses going forward. And really what that means is that the bus is trying to make sure that it does what the driver wants it to do. And it sounds a little complicated, but it's really not very difficult. What they have is a steering angle sensor. So in the steering column, there's a sensor, and it's looking for the position of the steering wheel. You've got a brake pressure sensor, which has always been there, and then what's underneath what's called a lateral acceleration and yaw rate sensor. I don't expect you to remember that or need to know that, just telling you how it works. That sensor is basically like the gyro in your phone. That's a simple way to put it. When you turn your phone and the image turns, it's kind of the same idea. It's looking for side to side, forward and back movement. And really what it's saying is, okay, the driver's wheels are following a straight path. The steering wheel is at 0 degrees, but something in the back end of this bus doesn't feel right. It's sliding, it's not following the path of the forward wheels. We need to intervene. So what the bus can do is apply the brakes at one individual wheel if it needs to, or release to keep that bus on a straightforward path. So a couple of examples would be if you are, let's say, taking a turn and it's icy, it's that early morning sun, when it's the iciest, most dangerous time to be driving. You take that corner and you feel the back end of your bus fishtail. We're trained to counter steer and keep that bus on the road, hopefully. So what this system does is it prevents that fishtail from even happening in the first place. You won't even know that the system is working in most cases. You're going to turn the wheel, it's going to recognize that your wheel has now been straightened out, but the back end is going the wrong way, and it's going to apply or release brakes as it needs to keep that bus on that straightforward path. So it's all based on your ABS system, which is already there. We're basically just telling it to do a couple of extra things that it hasn't had to do before. Again, the idea is it wants to make sure that it's doing what the driver wants it to do. So another example, if you are, let's say, coming off a ramp. So I came from New Paltz, came up here, and the exit I got off at was pretty sharp U-turn getting to the toll booth up here. I think it was exit 6 maybe. And they got the flashing lights, slow down to 20 miles an hour. And it's interesting because the system recognizes that the vehicle may be going too fast for the angle of the steering wheel. So your driver taking that corner may find that their throttle completely cuts out and it does not allow them to accelerate anymore because the vehicle is saying the lean or the speed for this angle of the steering is not acceptable. And so it's a system designed to help keep you upright on the road and on track. That's really what it's for. The key is the driver is still in control. The bus will not steer for you. It'll help you with braking where it needs to, but it's not going to steer. So we think about where we risk loss of control. Really, it's everywhere. Dry roads, icy roads, curves, bridges. We know the bridges get icy before the road does. You can lose control anywhere. It does not discriminate. I watched a video fairly recently of a bus in an apartment complex. It was a large bus, half size, rounded the corner in this apartment complex. Driver hit the brakes, they had the ambers going for a student stop, and the bus spun, hit the curb, and flipped right on its side. Right? They were going at a very low rate of speed. So it's not always what we think, and of course that's an extreme, and we don't see it every day, but we risk loss of control anywhere, really. And maybe part of that was the driver didn't have training on how to handle that, or maybe they just panicked. Nobody really knows how you're going to react in an accident. We think we know how we're going to react, but what's the reality when it's right in front of us? You prevent that, stay focused, anticipate hazards, know the route if you can, and understand safe driving practices. The sub driver, as we know, has the worst job of anybody. Being the sub is not fun. They don't know the bus, they don't know the kids, they don't know the route, they don't know the roads. Those people are brave to do that every day. So a quick Google search of school bus rollover yields a surprising number of results. And I don't show this to act as a scare tactic, like, do this or else. It's just to give you the idea that this stuff does happen. We might think that school bus rollovers, that doesn't happen. And for the most part, you're right, it really doesn't. But a search will show you that there are school bus rollovers that happen all over this country all the time. To be fair, some of these may be heavily driver error, accident, whatever the situation may be, but it does happen. So, and it's not to say that this system will prevent everything either. You know, you're going to see a video later where he says the laws of physics still apply. Sometimes if you just go in too quick, there's nothing that can be done. The system will try, but it's ultimately the driver doing the right thing that's going to prevent these accidents from happening. So I'm going to show you a video from IC, and what I want you really to focus on is the comparison side by side of with and without stability control. So I will talk a little bit about a test that I was involved with and kind of give you some detail on that, but I'll show you on here. A lot of the wording in the video is repetitive of what I've already said, but I really want you to see that comparison. So to kind of review the video, the stability system is really meant to help mitigate rollovers and loss of control, right? That's its intention. Stability on both wet and dry roads really does not matter. It's trying to keep that bus on the correct path either way. And again, it's driver intention. It's always what the driver wants to happen. It's never going to do something to override. If the driver is steering to the right, the bus is going to do everything in its power to make sure that that bus goes to the right. Can apply brakes, dethrottle the engine, and mitigate slide, skids, and loss of control. So you're probably wondering, how do I train people to use this? And the answer is that you don't. You're not training anybody to drive a bus with electronic stability control, period. You're training them to drive a vehicle safely in all weather conditions and learn how to operate that vehicle in snow, ice, dry roads, whatever it may be, right? We're not teaching them how to drive with stability control. That's not the point. They should never even know that it's there, okay? We go through all of this and tell you all of this so that you understand what your vehicles are capable of, because a driver may say, you know, this bus does not fishtail. Why doesn't it, you know, no matter what I do, it doesn't do it. Most of us have probably, or can, purposely fishtail a bus, right? You take a corner pretty quick, kind of give it some power, kick the back end out. These won't let you do that, okay? It says your steering angle is too severe, not going to happen, and it's going to do everything in its power to hold the road where it should. I can't see where that's a bad thing. Again, the driver has to understand vehicle control techniques. So how does my training change? Not at all. Just continue to train them how to drive that bus the way you always have. So this part I would ask for just a little bit of feedback from you guys. What do you think is the leading cause of vehicle accidents? Distraction. Any other thoughts from anybody? Pretty much agree with that. Distraction. Are all accidents preventable, do you think? That's my answer. Anybody else? Any arguments? Come on. Let's fight. Let's argue, huh? By somebody. Yep. So that's a good point. And that's kind of, I think that's the debate that a lot of people make, is that In some form or another, somewhere in that situation, somebody could have done something differently to prevent an accident. So think about this question. Is driving a school bus distracting? I don't think so, but I think transporting children is distracting. Driving the bus is very, very easy, right? People think once you do it enough, you drive the bus, it's no problem. It's like a sports car, right? You can get it wherever you need to get it, and you know where you can get it. Transporting kids is where things get very interesting. You've got a lot of things going on behind you, in front of you, route sheets, radio, whatever. Do you think a driver can be too confident? There's definitely a difference between confident and overconfident, right? Confident is saying, I know what I can do and I know what I can't do. Overconfident is I can do whatever you tell me you want me to do. There's a huge difference there. And so I'll ask this too. How many of your operations have been involved in an on-road school bus accident? And there's no shame in this. I've had workplaces where it's happened. It happens. Okay. So I want you to think about those accidents or that accident. Really, what was the cause? Was it the fault of the school bus driver in most cases, or was it that they were rear-ended, they were sideswiped? What's the situation? And I ask that because sometimes, we think maybe more training would be good, but for who? The example I gave this morning is, and we see it all the time, you think about the 16-year-old going to get their permit. Who teaches them to drive? Mom and dad, who usually can't drive in the first place, by our standard, right? If you ask them, they're a great driver. But we see what they do and we are horrified because we're professionally trained in road observation and how to handle the vehicle. They train their child to drive, they go take a road test, they do all the right things, get the examiner on a good day, and they pass. Now what? They have a license to operate for as long as they continue to renew, right? So those people probably could use more training. In the cases of school bus, rear-end collisions, for example, it is completely preventable unless there's a mechanical failure with brake lights or something, right? I've seen it happen. The bus double stops or something, does a student stop, and then comes to a stop sign. Car hits it because they thought they were going to go. They thought that they had stopped at the stop sign. Observation would say otherwise, but not everybody is so fine-tuned to that. Our school bus drivers are highly trained. We know that, right? The road test now is very intense. They pre-trip every day so they know their vehicle, hopefully. They have constant review and monitoring, right? Their fingerprinted drug test. There's a lot that they have to go through to maintain that license. So this statistic I found interesting, and it says any given moment last year, 1 in every 100 car drivers was texting, emailing, or surfing the web. To me, that number seems low. I won't argue with the NTSB, but think about when you go down the road, how many people are on their phone? You're next to them, you're at a red light, the light turns green, they're not going, and you're thinking, come on, and you beep, and of course they look up from their phone because that's what they're doing. And it's obviously dangerous, we know that. So this accident, St. James, Missouri, I'll explain why I'm showing this particular accident. 19-year-old sent 11 texts in 11 minutes leading up to this accident. Under here, this is a pickup truck right here. Silverado, I believe, Chevy. Texting, not paying attention. The tractor slowed down for a work zone or some other hazard, and because he was staring at his phone, he plowed into the back of it. Now, he was blamed for this accident very heavily. He was texting and driving. The focus is this young kid texting and driving. My take is this driver and this driver are equally as guilty in this accident because they should have been anticipating what could happen, right? They should have been following safely. What I think is fascinating is the report on it, the NTSB report. Specifically, they call out that the pickup truck driver was completely distracted, obviously. Maybe he would have rear-ended the truck, but maybe he would have lived if the bus didn't hit him, right? The bus, the first school bus, the driver was not paying attention to the forward roadway because there was a motor coach on the shoulder that they were distracted by. So even this driver who thinks that they're doing everything the right way, and maybe they were, was distracted. Some things you just can't help. You see that bus there, you're thinking, is anybody going to step out? What's the problem? You try to get over, people don't let you over, whatever it might be. This last one is interesting. The last school bus, or the second school bus, did not maintain the recommended minimum distance from the first bus. This is back in 2010, mind you, and NTSB said contributing to the severity was the lack of a forward collision warning system on both school buses. So if that gives you any indication of how long this has been a target item for NTSB, this is back in 2010. So we're talking almost 10 years ago now. The driver should have been following at a safer distance, plain and simple. Had they had these systems in place, which we'll talk about, maybe the outcome would have been different. The girl in the back seat of the first school bus was killed, and the driver of the pickup truck was killed. We know that. Think about your field trips that go out. You assign a trip, they bid a trip, whatever it might be. You listen to the conversation in the hallway, and it's, I'm going to follow you because I don't know where I'm going. Don't lose me. And when you hear don't lose me, it's, like, great. They don't know where they're going. But not everybody knows where everything is, so you can't blame them, right? But when I hear that, I think that means that this driver is going to do everything in their power to try and keep up with the first driver, right? And that may be the situation here. I don't want to speculate, but it's very easy first to fall into the convoy trap and get too close so people don't break you up. But also, you don't want to get lost. You've got kids behind you, you've got teachers behind you, you're trying to get them to a field trip and they need to eat lunch, and you know how field trips work. That driver is more likely to perform dangerously when you think about it, right? I mean, they are going to, maybe that light turns yellow and normally they'd stop for it, but they know that that first bus can't pull over anywhere. What are they going to do? They're going to keep going, right? And they're going to tail grab to keep that following distance or keep them in their sight so that they don't, lose that, that safety net that they have. So we talk about 3 types of distractions, and those are visual, manual, and cognitive. Okay, texting is all 3, right? What about driving a route with students? You got a route sheet? Some of you have tablets now, but you do one of these things, fold the sheet in half, and you're reading like this while you're going down the road. That's very much visual, manual, and cognitive, trying to think, I know the name of that street, where is it? I can't figure out where it is. Pupil mirror, the dangerous number 7 mirror, we know that that's the most dangerous piece of equipment on our bus. Warning light activation, maybe it's okay most days, but if you get in a spare, you have that muscle memory thing where you start going for stuff and you just go like this, and you think, where is it? These things are distracting. 2-way radio, picking up the radio to talk, listening to the radio. Route hypnosis, how many times have you gotten back to the yard and not remember the last 10 minutes at all? I'm guilty of that. I used to go up and down the same road 8 times a day, 15 miles one way. 8 times. You think by the time I got back to the yard I have any recollection of any of that after the 8th trip? Not really. After the run, we're in off season right now, but it doesn't mean things are quiet for us. But late June, everybody's hot, sticky, miserable, wants to be done. All they want to do is jump in their pool. That's all they can think about. And the students, obviously. I point all of these out as just some of the things we deal with and how they all play into the visual, manual, cognitive part of what we do. So that's not to say that we are dangerous drivers by any means, because we're not. But by nature of our work, it's distracting, no matter what we do about it, right? Even if you have a tablet, it's still distracting. It's an audible, now it's a cognitive thing. Now they're becoming visual if you're allowed to use them for navigation. There's manual if you're hitting buttons, to log students in or out or make a note. No matter which way we go, our job is distracting. So we think about why we have collision mitigation. It's really to make student transportation safer. And again, I've given you all this information and not even told you really what it can do, because it's important that you understand that this technology has a purpose. Things have happened that have gotten us to this point. The industry is changing in general. And we're going to have some drivers that don't like it. Plain and simple, they are not going to like it. And that's something we have to be ready to deal with, like anything new. I always use cameras. The first bus you got with cameras was probably hated. I'm not driving it, I'm being spied on, I don't need to be watched, blah, blah, blah. I've lived it, and it's not fun. What you find now is they walk in and say, pull the tape. I mark the button, pull the tape, you'll see what happened, call me if you need me. They're gone. You pull the tape, find what happened, hopefully. They're usually in the seat just out of view, from my experience, of course, but it happens. now they like this technology. They found that it's not there to hurt them. It actually can help them. And maybe some still feel like they're being watched. But if you're doing nothing wrong, so what? We have these systems as a backup when things go wrong, right? You're driving the route, they dropped me off at my house. Why are you opening the door at the tracks? Why this? Don't forget the lottery pool in the break room. We're taking it in today. Or don't forget to get your sweatshirt order in so we can, all these things that happen take us away from the road. This is an actual route sheet that I had. Turn right on Ward, make a U-turn, okay, turn left on Ward, drop the kid, and then turn right on Ward again. And I'm sitting there in a bus, and I'm like, I have no idea where I'm going. And now I'd already made the right turn. What happened was the routing software caught a paper side street and tried to make it work. Okay, that's distracting. Now I'm panicking because I'm already late. I have to be to another school. Kids are screaming at me because why are you going this way? And now you're wondering, is it the driver that goes the wrong way? You're ready to kill the other driver, right? You're thinking, I'm gonna kill them, for doing this. These are things that happen. This technology can't hurt us as long as you're doing everything right in the first place. So we'll talk about what the driver should be able to do, and that's identify a vehicle with the collision mitigation system, locate the radar and driver interface unit, and describe the function of those generally, and then explain some of the precautions like winter weather things. Again, why is because your fleets are going to run buses with and without this for a long time. Your buses were delivered last year. They may be around 8, 10, 12 years. Drivers are driving both. They drive a new bus every day. They got to get the bus pulled for DOT. They're in a spare for a morning. Doesn't have it. They're used to certain things being there. So to identify a vehicle with Bendix Wingman Advanced, which is what you guys will have, most of you, you're looking for a radar unit in the front center of the bumper. It's just a little black box with a plug going into it. That's your first indication that you've got a collision mitigation system on your vehicle. Like any other component on the exterior, your mirrors, your lights, keep it clear of snow, dirt, and debris. You wipe your mirrors down, you keep your lights clear, keep that radar unit clear. I'll talk a little bit about what happens in the winter when the sticky snow packs on the front of it, but generally treat it like any other item during your pre-trip. On the dash, on the right-hand side, you're going to see what's called a DIU, or driver interface unit, and that is the permanent location from the factory for now. So those are the two things you're looking for with Wingman Advanced, and that's it. You've got a dash unit and a radar in the bumper. That indicates that you have a collision mitigation system. So the features: electronic stability control, standard. You now have adaptive cruise control, and I'll talk about what all these things are in a little more detail, but I'm going to run through the punch list here. You will have following distance alerts. You will have impact alerts, collision mitigation, stationary object alerts, and then what's called active and passive assistance. So I will run through these and kind of give you the overview. So by saying active, I mean that the system has the ability to apply the brakes and dethrottle if it needs to. In other words, the bus can take over if it has to. Passive is purely audible and visual. So competitors, for example, don't offer this. We are the only one that has both active and passive, which gives us a little bit of an edge in that we can apply the brakes, we can dethrottle if we need to. So adaptive cruise control, probably a lot of you are familiar with it. What happens is you set your cruising speed, say you set it to 54 miles per hour, and the guy in front of you is one of those people that doesn't use his cruise and goes anywhere from like 46 to 53 down to 40 and back up, where you can't, just the person that just gets under your skin. What this is going to do is sense that that vehicle is there using the radar. It's sending out a signal, and it wants to make sure that your following distance is safe. So what's going to happen is, if say you're going 54 and you come up on this vehicle and he's going 54, fine. It's going to maintain a 3.5 second gap for you. You don't have to do anything. If he slows down to say 50, your bus is also going to slow down to 50 without any intervention from you, if your cruise control is set. Okay? So your foot's on the floor, you don't have it on the brake or the accelerator. Because you have cruise set, it has the ability to throttle you down and maintain a safe gap between you and that forward-moving vehicle. And it will do this down to a pretty severe level. I mean, if he goes down to 20 miles an hour, your bus is going to go down to 20 miles an hour. My recommendation is, if they're slowing down that much, that you shouldn't be on cruise anyway, you should be braking. What I will say with this is some operations have a strict no cruise control policy, some don't order it, and some didn't know they needed a policy until I said that. So, we have different variations of how, and I should reword that, you don't need a policy, but some felt that they should with this. So that's what it can do for you. Once that vehicle speeds back up, say they go from 40 and back up to 54, 55, your bus will accelerate on its own back up to that set following speed until it hits where you set it. So if you set it at 54, it's not going to exceed 54. It's going to stay right there. This goes back to the St. James, Missouri accident. If that first bus had maybe cruise control, the second bus had, or adaptive cruise control, the second bus had adaptive cruise control, maybe they wouldn't have been so close to one another, and that first vehicle slowing would have maybe given indication. Again, it's easy to speculate. We weren't there, but these things can't hurt us, right? So it's a pretty neat feature. I actually used it on the way up here. Like I said, I came an hour and a half from New Paltz, and I set it, and didn't really worry about it. I keep an eye on my speedometer. I keep an eye, and make sure that I'm not going ungodly slow, because sometimes you don't realize that it's slowed you down until everybody's flying by you. But it does take some of the stress off of driving and eliminates that human error part of it. You can override it. You can accelerate closer to that vehicle in front of you, but it's going to sound following distance alerts, because now you're breaking what's safe. You're getting too close to that forward vehicle. What's important about this is that first, it's above 5 miles per hour, and I'll hit the pressing question that I always get: what about in the yard? What about leaving the school? What about in traffic? It recognizes that safe at 10 is different than safe at 50, right? We know that. At 50 miles an hour, you need a much larger gap than you do at 10 miles per hour, and it knows this. So if you're in the school bus loop, pulling up, leaving, whatever it is, coming back into the yard, you get a wave of 10, 12 buses that come in at once. They're going slow enough where it recognizes that, okay, at this rate of speed, as close as they are is not a problem, Obviously, it comes down to driver training. They shouldn't be following too close to begin with, but it won't really sound any alarms at all. If you hit heavy traffic, let's say, on 87 here, it's not going to do anything. As long as you're maintaining a gap that's safe for the speed that you're going, you won't hear a sound. You do have 3 levels of alerts. So you've got a first level, which is close, and it's a single beep, and it's going to continue to beep, and that just indicates that you're following too closely. You're going to see your dash unit here. That's the kind of the front view of it. You're going to see yellow lights on the left-hand side flash. So if you continue to get closer still, now 2 lights will flash and you'll get the audible. Closest, 3 lights will flash, you'll get the audible, and so on. So there's 3 levels of those alerts. If you get to level 2 or 3, you really are playing an extremely dangerous game to begin with. It takes a lot to get there. Usually your first level alert is a pretty good indication that you need to back off, and that's all you have to do. So if you're getting that alarm saying you're too close, dethrottle, tap the brake real quick. As long as the system senses that that gap has increased, even just marginally, it's going to silence and say, okay, the driver has taken action to make sure that the gap is increased. So if you have drivers that come in, and some of you heard me say this a couple times, and they're complaining and saying this thing beeps all the time, it makes all kinds of noise, I don't like it, that's a different conversation that you need to have, because it's likely that the driver's habits are maybe not so good. And I don't want to say that that's a driver training issue. Sometimes it's a perception issue. I've talked about this, counting seconds for following distance. You pass a marker on the road. When that vehicle passes it, you start counting 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. That's my count. It's fast. If I ask Jeff, he's going to go 1, 1,001, 1, 1,002. Maybe you do it different. 1, 1,003, you get the idea. His is slower. But we both follow at 3 seconds if you ask us, right? That's what makes this interesting, is its perception. That driver's perception of their distance was, it's fine. This is going to maybe tell you something different. So at first, they're going to be probably a little frustrated. Not everybody. Some will be a little frustrated and find out that they need to adjust their habits just a little bit. And that's something that's happened with me. And I don't stand here and pretend to be a perfect driver by any means. I do my best, but sometimes I let myself get the best of me. I've learned what safe following distance is. I've got a visual now on what that looks like. So I've tuned my behavior according to that. You know, what I thought was safe, I realize is not, and I need to drive differently in order to accommodate and make sure that my behaviors are safe. And so really that is what this has allowed me to do. Any questions on the following distance alerts, generally concerns, thoughts, anything? Yeah.
So when you have your cruise control on and the bus is slowing down for you to the car in front of you, if somebody like 5 o'clock traffic on the Northway where you're actually going at a good clip and somebody just swerves right in front of you, is that going to like slam on the brakes or?
No. So that's a great question and one that I get and always forget to mention. As long as that vehicle that's moving in front of you continues to accelerate, it's not going to do anything. So they might come in right under your crossover mirror and get an instinct reaction from you. As long as they cut in and keep going, it's no problem. They can cut right in. If they cut in front of you and slam on their brakes, that's a different situation, obviously. That's really a good question.
If it slows you down enough, does it activate your brake lights at all?
Will it activate the brake lights with adaptive cruise? The answer to that part is no. So it's just like decelerating normally. Now, if the bus actually has to apply the brakes for some reason, it will. If it's for a decelerating for a cruise situation, it's considered to be no different than you just decelerating generally, right? It's kind of the same concept. It's not braking, it's just slowing you down. Okay, so impact alerts. What happens when you get over your level 3 alert is you get an impact alert. And that is a flat line kind of indicating you need to intervene now, and you have very little time to do it, because if you get to this point, the bus is ready to take over if it needs to. It's locked and loaded, so to speak. So when a large metallic object is present in the lane, right, it can alert you that there's something there. So for example, a slower moving vehicle, if you're going 50 and they're going 30, and you're coming up on them and you're not slowing down, you're going to get your following distance alerts, of course, to indicate that there's too close, unsafe condition. But what can happen is you'll get the impact alert, and that's your last cue. And that's basically just saying you need to do something because there's about to be a collision. An automatic braking application may occur if the condition becomes unsafe. And so what that means is if that forward-moving vehicle is slowing down and you are not slowing down, the bus can apply the brakes for you and prevent you from hitting that vehicle. In that case, the brake lights would come on if the vehicle is having to do the stopping for you. The driver is given plenty of notice. They get their following distance alerts, they get their impact alert. It's not as if suddenly the brakes are just going to lock up and they're not going to know why. That said, when the brakes do come on, it's not graceful by any means. It's very equivalent, to a DOT brake stop. It's like going 50 miles an hour and taking your foot and mashing it on the brake pedal as hard as you can. It is a collision avoidance maneuver. It is not intended to be graceful or polite or kind in any way. Everybody's going to know what happened. Okay? A key here is that vehicle has to be moving. That forward vehicle has to be moving for it to apply the brakes. In other words, if they're going 30, again, you're going 50, and you're going to hit, it will. It will not apply the brakes for a stationary or parked vehicle. And the reason is that the radar unit can't always say, yeah, that's definitely a car worthy of us stopping for, because we don't want to create situations where it's stopping unnecessarily, right? So when it's moving, it's pretty definitive, okay, that's definitely a car. When it's sitting still, sometimes there's question there, and so they take that away. One thing to note when you're talking to your drivers is that radar unit is pretty centric. It's really focused on the center of your lane. A vehicle on the shoulder, not going to pick it up in most cases. Something like a garbage truck where there's a small shoulder and they're over and that truck's hanging out into the lane, it's pretty important that the driver is aware of whether or not that vehicle is being picked up, right? They may get an alert that says, impact alert, and that's because that truck is hanging out and they're coming at it. But if the driver's slowing down and they have their hazards on and they're doing everything right prior to getting there, it's not going to do anything. But they should just be aware that a vehicle hanging out into their lane of travel is a hazard, which we pretty much know anyway. Any other questions? Yes.
Is there like an override or something? I mean, what if that radar screws up, you're driving down the road and all of a sudden your brakes lock up?
So the question is there an override? If you're going down the road, can your brakes lock up? The answer is the brakes will never lock up. If the radar faults, you will get a fault code on the dash, check engine light or something similar. I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. Nothing that this system has will render the bus inoperable ever. So it's all ABS based. So basically it would be equivalent to saying that your bus with ABS now could have the brakes lock up. So no. And there's no override. None of these systems can be turned off, which is key as well. A lot of cars now give you the option to turn the features on and off. This you can. It's always there. And the reason for that is it should be. It's good for us. I was doing some research last night actually and came across a truck drivers forum, and the guy posted something to the effect of, how do I disable this Bendix system? And my thought is, why do you want to disable it? What are you doing that's annoying you? You know, why is this system bothering you so much that you feel that you want to disable it? It's a habit thing. It's the way the person drives. If you have a stationary metallic object, you could get a stationary object alert to say, hey, there's something here, but we're not going to apply the brakes because it's sitting still, and we can't definitely say, yeah, it's a vehicle. Now, of course, somebody posed the question earlier, if there's a refrigerator box laying in the middle of the road, what's it going to do? I don't have that answer. Primarily large metallic, so things like motorcycles in most cases, depending on the equipment they have on the back, you know, farm tractors, you know, other trucks, even mud, things covered in mud. You know, in farm country, you get these trucks that are just completely caked in mud. It picks that stuff up. You know, I've never had an incident where it hasn't. So again, the bus will not apply the brakes for a stopped vehicle. If you're going down a city street and you're kind of doing one of these, weaving between the parked cars, that's fine. It's not an issue. It recognizes what you're doing. You know, you're not like going down a city street constantly getting alerts saying, hey, you're going to hit this car, you're going to hit this car. You can go about your business as normal. And truth be told, you can drive this bus for weeks and never hear a sound. Honestly, if you do everything the right way. When I started with it, I didn't like it. I thought, this is irritating. You know, what I realized is it wasn't the bus that was irritating, it was my habits sucked. And I had some changes I had to make, you know, and some of them were my own, you know, sometimes impatience, some of it was perception, but you know, if you can drive normally, you won't have an issue. Any other questions or thoughts? Yeah.
I'm not sure, like, will it detect a vehicle that's coming out into the road? Because it's stationary in front of it, even though it's coming from the side.
So the question is, you know, will it detect a vehicle coming from a side street, let's say, if they maybe cross in front of you or pull out and stop? The answer to that, honestly, is I don't know. I would think if it stops, probably you're going to get a stationary object alert. They do show that in one of the videos. If that vehicle continues to move across, I would say no, because I've never had it happen in my experience. So the bus outside has, you know, I've put just about 10,000 miles on it myself, and have not experienced anything like that, you know, cars pulling across. And we know when they see a yellow bus coming, first thing is, go. You know, I don't want to get stuck behind it, which I get it, but they do it. I haven't had that happen, but good thought. I'll show you a video here pretty shortly that kind of demonstrates that situation. So faults. I'm not going to sit here and say that you will never, ever, ever, ever see a fault light, because you will at some point, and I'll tell you why. Firstly, you will see, or you could see, an ABS light, traction control, the upside down triangle light come on. It's not a cause for concern. Just like any ABS light coming on in your car, bus now, I mean, yeah, it's kind of a pain, you know, now you got to get it looked at, but it's not, you can still drive the vehicle. It's not going to hurt anything. It's just important that the driver understands that. And how you handle those dash lights coming on is, again, is specific to the operation. Some people say carry on, some say what is it, some bring you a bus immediately. So you still do that the same way you've always done it. The vehicle is still operable and safe. There's nothing that makes the vehicle unsafe if this system stops working. It just now performs like any other bus. The driver should know, however, that some functions may be limited until it's serviced, and I'll tell you what that means as well. So what will happen often in the winter, maybe I shouldn't use the word often, depending on the weather. If you've got a heavy, sticky snow that just kind of sticks to the front of everything and packs on there, the real wet snow, maybe in Buffalo that's more of a problem than it is here, I don't know, but it does exist, and we drove this bus through a winter and, you know, drove through all kinds of conditions. What will happen is the radar unit will become blocked, or if you're on maybe a muddy or dirt road, it gets caked, it may need to be cleaned off. And what's going to happen is you're going to get a fault on your dashboard on the right side, and it's going to say Wingman blocked or radar blocked. In the center console, or the center of the gauge cluster rather, where the odometer is displayed, you may see radar fault listed. You'll see the upside down triangle come on, and immediately, the driver is going to think, what do I do? We have documents for that I'll also get to, but the bus is still safe. All that means is that the radar unit can no longer see or hear. It's trying to send out a signal, but it can't because it's blocked. So if you have a new bus come in, when you mount the license plates, they should be mounted from the top, not the bottom. If you are an operation that hands out the winter front covers and says, here, put it on, just know that the cover can't block the radar. New buses ordered with it come with the short cover rather than the long yellow cover. So we've kind of got that covered. It just shouldn't be blocked. It needs to be able to see and hear. So with, as far as features being disabled, you figure if that radar is blocked, right, it can't see or hear anything, so you're going to lose adaptive cruise, you're going to lose following distance alerts, you're going to lose your impact alerts. All those features go away because that's how it's knowing what's happening in front of it. Again, the bus is still drivable. It's just like any other bus. Now you don't have those features. Easiest way to handle that is clear the radar unit off, and the system will run a self-test and reset itself. So every time you start your bus, you turn the key on and you hear the ABS system run a self-test. This system is now part of that. So what it's going to do is it's going to try and shoot out a radar signal and say, can I? Yes, okay, we're good. And that display when you start the bus is going to say Wingman okay. And it basically indicates that all's well. So what I would say is your drivers need to know that no, you don't need to pull over immediately and get off and clear it. When you get to the school, when you get to the yard, wherever, your layover, your coffee stop, just brush it off, turn the bus off, and restart it. And it's like the one time that shut it off and restart it actually fixes the problem, from my experience. So it's going to happen. They're not going to pretend that it's not, and it's just something that the drivers should understand. And I have a document for the drivers specifically that will explain this.
Today we're at the Transportation Research Center in East Liberty, Ohio, showing off our electronic stability control and collision mitigation system.
I think customers will really accept this technology with open arms because they all have it on their personal vehicles, and until now it's never been available on buses.
We've got the ice, the snow, the rain. We have a lot of hills in certain parts of our district, so I think with having better braking capabilities and just the alerts, I think will create a much safer situation for our children.
We went through the water, and I was surprised how the system itself takes over, interacts, and safely helps you steer that vehicle. We need to get on board the technology because it's only going to help us.
It was nice to see the technology catching up where it could prevent accidents. Riding along has made me a believer in the technology of stability control.
Hopefully we never have the situations with the collision mitigation, but if we ever do, that would step in. It's a no-brainer. This technology will make roads safer, and that's what we're all about, is safety.
So, again, it's so easy to kind of shy away from technology because it's different and it's not something that we think we have time for. We're trying to make this easier for you. The prime example is prior district I worked for. They wanted to do tablets on the buses, and I immediately said, I don't want it. I don't want to know anything about it. I don't have time for this. Fast forward, I've seen districts that use it, and I think it's fantastic, and I think it's great, and I love what it can do. But in the moment, I thought, I am way too busy. I have way too much going on. I don't have time to devote to this. If only I'd had, more resources available to me, that would be great maybe, but I wasn't about it. So I've been in the situation where technology is being sent my way and I didn't want it. I think this is different in a lot of ways in that it's really a refined system, and we're trying to give you everything that you're going to need to put it out there. So with all that said, I've gone through and I've explained basically all the features of the system, what you need to look for, what you need to know. This video here is about 7 minutes, and I will play it, and it's a video that you can use during your driver training events if you feel that you want to. Okay, it's going to run through all the systems basically like I did in a quicker format. There's a couple things in there that might be a little more information than they need just as far as being confusing, but generally, if you want to show this, it's available. If you don't want to show it, that's fine. And when we're done with that, I will show you where you can find this video so that if you decide you want to use it, you can.
Hi, I'm Fred Andersky with Bendix. Congratulations on adding a critical Bendix active safety technology to your IC bus. You're taking the next step to helping keep our highways safer for everyone who shares the road. This video will help you better understand the alerts and interventions you may hear, see, and feel when driving your IC bus equipped with the standard Bendix Wingman Advanced collision mitigation technology and standard Bendix ESP full stability technology. Keep in mind that these are driver assistance technologies. Your safe driving and safe driving habits are essential to ensuring safety. You are in control of the vehicle at all times, and your goal is not to have the system intervene. It's there to back you up. Let's start with full stability, Bendix ESP. Bendix ESP uses additional sensors built into the anti-lock braking system, or ABS, to help you mitigate rollover and loss of control situations. ESP monitors your intended speed and direction, along with the actual speed and direction of your bus. When these aren't in alignment, and depending on the severity of the situation, Bendix ESP may intervene by reducing throttle and, if necessary, selectively applying the brakes to help you maintain control on a slick surface. Keep in mind, however, that stability control has limits. It is possible to go into a situation with too much speed. While the system will intervene, the laws of physics may take over, and you may still roll over or lose control. Again, drive normally and drive safely. Now let's talk about the collision mitigation technology on your IC bus, Bendix Wingman Advanced. Bendix Wingman Advanced uses a radar mounted in the center of the bumper. The radar delivers information into the system to provide you with alerts and interventions to help you avoid rear-end collisions. On your IC bus, you will receive audible and visual alerts through the Bendix Driver Interface Unit, or DIU. Let's experience some of the situations that Bendix Wingman Advanced can help you possibly avoid. We'll begin with active cruise with braking. The system is available when you engage your cruise control and set your speed. Bendix Wingman Advanced will help you maintain a set following distance behind the forward vehicle. Typically, this following distance will be 2.8 seconds or 3.5 seconds. The system will do this by matching your speed with the forward vehicle or by maintaining your cruise control set speed if it is lower. If the forward vehicle starts to slow down and you don't respond, Wingman Advanced will intervene by reducing throttle, engaging the engine retarder, or, if necessary, applying the brakes to help you maintain the gap. Should a vehicle cut in front and accelerate away, the system does not view it as a threat, so it maintains your speed. However, if a vehicle cuts in front of your bus and slows, such as when attempting to make an exit ramp or an abrupt turn, the system will alert and respond as noted earlier, helping you avoid a potential rear-end collision. Next, following distance alerts, or FDAs, the first line of defense to help you avoid rear-end collisions. These alerts occur whether you are in cruise control or not, and let you know when the gap between your bus and the forward vehicle is closing. At 37 miles per hour or above, depending on the FDA strategy used, you will typically get 2 or 3 alerts, a close, closer, and finally closest alert. Below 37 miles per hour, you typically get 1 or 2 alerts, the closer and closest alert. Here's what happens on the road. On the DIU, you can see the gap measured in seconds to impact between your bus and the forward vehicle closing. Of course, don't be distracted by staring at the DIU. Keep your attention on what's happening in front of you. Here's the first, or the close alert. The gap continues closing, and the second alert, the closer alert, is delivered. You're getting pretty close now, so the third, or closest following distance alert is given. You can eliminate these alerts by slowing to increase the gap between your bus and the forward vehicle. However, Should the situation change and the system determines a collision is likely, you will receive an impact alert a half second before the system cuts throttle and applies the brakes to help you avoid or lessen the impact of a potential rear-end collision. Keep in mind that you are always in control of the bus, and you can add more braking or you can steer to help avoid the potential collision. Another alert, to give you a heads up to help avoid a collision, is the stationary object alert. When a metallic object of size is in your lane of travel, Bendix Wingman Advanced will alert you up to 3 seconds before impact, enabling you to slow or maneuver to avoid the object. For optimal system performance, work with your maintenance team to ensure your tires and brakes are in good operating condition. Here's a couple of things to keep in mind. If the anti-lock braking system light is on, meaning ABS is faulted, you will still have braking, but you will not have ABS, stability control, or collision mitigation available. Have the ABS repaired as soon as possible, preferably before going out on the road. If the stability system light is on, meaning stability control is faulted, you will still have ABS, but you will not have collision mitigation braking or stability control. Have stability control repaired as soon as possible, again, preferably before going out on the road. Should you receive a collision mitigation system fault on the road, pull over to a safe area, then check the radar for anything that may be blocking it, such as dirt, mud, snow, or ice. Remove any obstruction, making sure the radar is clean. The fault should go away. If it doesn't, seek repair as soon as possible. Always remember, you remain in control of your bus at all times. The systems we just covered are driver assistance technologies, not driver replacement technologies. Your safe driving habits, and ongoing training is critical to ensuring safety on the road. For additional details, please reference your operator's manual and the Wingman Advanced Quick Reference Guide, or visit bendix.com for additional information.
So again, it's there if you want to use it. If you don't feel that that's what you want to give to your drivers, you don't have to, but it is a nice little tool that does kind of cover everything that they really need to know. Nice tool by IC that they put together. So in the folder in front of you, you've got this packet. There's a couple things in there. I'm not going to read them line for line just to spare you the pain, but I do want to kind of give you a quick overview of what's in there. So the second page on the back side, you'll see what's the Transportation Director, Supervisor, and Administrator page. So truly this page is kind of intended to be more of a, we'll call it like a PR page for the Director, Supervisor. When you're talking to your school board or when you're talking to parents, these are just some of the key points that you can make when you're talking about this system. You know, make as many points as you want. These are just some of the things that you may hear, may see, or it's just different ways to talk about it. Give you some facts at the bottom there. Again, it's a tool for your reference if you choose to use it. If you flip over, you've got a page for driver trainers, 19A examiners, the SBDI. It's going to talk about the things that those people need to know about, you know, as far as what do I need to teach, what do people need to know, what do I need to know, and how do I train on this, and where do I get that information. So this page, again, is intended for that person. Backside of that, again, I'm just going through these kind of to give an idea. You're welcome to read them on your own time. Professional school bus drivers, this page might be one that you put on your bulletin board, put in the mailboxes, whatever you decide is best. It's going to answer those questions that you're going to field. And some of it is more just kind of helping the drivers understand the high level, but then getting down into, do I need to do anything different? What happens if something becomes damaged? What if I see a light on the dash? This document is meant to answer those questions. So we know that some of those emissions lights do yield some pretty interesting theories and conversations. You know, they see a temp light come on, they don't know what it means. That's kind of where this is derived from, and helping them understand their vehicle better and what's worth being concerned about and what isn't. So again, how you use this is at your discretion, but it's there for you. And then the page following that, if you flip over, is a training guide. So this is something that maybe you keep with you at the bus, maybe you give it to your driver, and it goes through all of the things you need to be able to identify, and then some precautions, what the features are, what they do, how they work, things like that. I want to take you to our website and give you a quick overview of where you can find some of these documents for your own use. So you go to leonardbus.com, we have a new website, and on this website we've added some training content. So depending on the size of your monitor, you may see a slightly different display up at the top here. If you have this display, click the drop down and you can select the training tab. On most browsers, it's right across the top. You can see all the different names and just click it there. So go into that training tab, scroll down just a little bit to Bendix Electronic Stability Control and Collision Mitigation, and you're going to find some high-level information there, but all these documents are on the right-hand side. So if you want the driver page and you want to print a bunch of them without making copies of this, click the blue box and it's going to bring that page up for you to access whenever you need. So you've got one for the supervisor again, driver, the technicians, which is not included in this packet, the trainers, and then there's a fact sheet as well. So if you ever feel that you need to access those, they are on our website for your use at any time. If you scroll down a little further, you're going to be able to see the video that I just showed you. And you want to make sure that you stick to the left-hand side here where it says Bendix Wingman Advanced. And you can click that video and play it for your drivers at the refresher meeting, at a safety meeting, or not at all. Again, it's up to you. Just be careful that you don't play the Fusion video on the right side, and that's do not, because it's going to tell you things that aren't true for your own vehicles in some cases. And then underneath that video is the training guide that is in your packet as well. So if you want to print those off, they're on our website for you to access. If you have any questions at any point, pops into your head, email, text, phone call, whatever your preferred means of contact is, please feel free to reach out and ask any questions you have. There is not a dumb question. Please don't feel like you should know something. It's very new. There's a lot of information, and I will, get back to you with an answer, hopefully.